Let me guess. You've tried using Notion and she's just not vibing with you. You're tired, frustrated, you feel like you're the only one giving to this relationship and getting absolutely nothing in return. Let me stop you there before you give up entirely and go back to your dusty old Evernote or Google Docs, whatever you're using before. You, my friend, are in luck because today, school is in session. In today's class, we're going to be going over exactly what you're doing wrong, how to actually build a workspace for your needs, and finally, we're going to cap it off with some nifty tips and tricks to keep yourself from going insane. What we will not be covering is what Notion is or why you should be using it, because if you clicked on this video, you probably already know those things, and if you don't, then I have no idea why you're here. And no, I did not go to Harvard, I just really like this sweatshirt. Getting to know yourself is a lifelong journey that's gonna help you in almost every way. Forming relationships, succeeding at work, healing your trauma, oh, and also building your Notion. And it's precisely because you don't know yourself that you're struggling with building a workspace that isn't a flaming dumpster fire. So all systems, productivity methods, whatever you want to call it, whether that's in Notion or Todoist, pen and paper, whatever you use, it's all going to come down to workflows and information. And when we talk about workflows, we're essentially just considering what kind of entry points you need to get started. So this could be starting my day, planning for the week, studying for lecture notes, or maybe scripting, filming a video. You get the point. You always want to start with workflows before diving into anything, whether that's Notion or another app, because by starting with an app and wondering how can this accommodate my life, you're already limiting your thinking and kind of putting yourself in a box. Instead, you want to actually look at what you do every day, think about your problems, where you're finding friction, write that down, because that is going to be the basis for your dashboards, which we'll get into later. Just start with brainstorming what you want to do, learn, or create. The second big part of this, information. This is what you want to capture or manage within your workflows. And this will become the foundation for your databases, which if database sounds like a scary thing, I promise it's not. It's really just a collection of information that's organized and viewed in a specific way. So when you're thinking about what kind of information you want to collect or what kind of database that you want to create, an easy rule of thumb is to think of nouns. So for example, movies, books, projects, goals, routines, recipes, all the random stuffed animals you keep in your house. It's really just any item that you want to collect, track, or manage on a regular basis. Now, a third key part of this is thinking about how you want to view this information in a way that accommodates the workflows that you're thinking about. And this is going to serve as a foundation for your database views. And if you've never worked with database views before, I promise it's not that intimidating. It's really just the filters for the information that you're collecting so that you can, once again, view that information in different ways, which is what makes databases so powerful in the first place. So for example, let's say you wanted to write a grocery list. So you put it on this whiteboard, hang it in the kitchen, and we have apples, cheese, garlic, right? So now anytime you want to go grocery shopping, you just go to the fridge and you see this. But what if I wanted to see this list categorized by the type of food? I want to see all the fruits in one area. I want to see all the dairy items so that when I go shopping, it's a little bit easier. Or maybe I want to see this list of items categorized by the recipes I plan to use them for. So that way when I go to see the recipe, I know what items I need to shop for to make sure that I have enough to make that in the week. If I wanted to do that, I would have to go and erase this and make a new fruits and dairy, and then we have to rewrite everything all over again. Massive waste of time, if you ask me. That's why we want to go with databases instead of rewriting things over and over again, because we have more important things to do with our lives, right? So if databases are the noun, then database views are the verb. If your database is a collection of tasks, your database views would be today's tasks, completed tasks, easy tasks. And if all of this sounds a little too theoretical for you so far, don't worry. This is not a class where I'm just gonna lecture at you the entire time. The next portion is actually going to be interactive, and we're gonna put what we just talked about into practice. And to do that, we're actually not gonna be using Notion, but a separate app called Scrintal. As much as I love Notion, they don't really specialize in visual mind mapping or brainstorming, which is something that Scrintal really excels at. So now that we're done with lecture, it's time to head to lab. Let's go. Okay, let's open up Scrintal. So as I just mentioned, Scrintal is a productivity app that combines the best of whiteboard infinite canvassing with document and note management. And if you do want to give them a try, I have a 14-day free trial, which you can sign up for using the link in the description box below. One of the key points of Scrintal is cards, and these function similar to any sort of note or document that you might find in another app. So you just click create card, write a note, and then you can click into this and write more notes. And then the other key feature to know is boards. So boards are your folders, collections of different cards, and we're gonna create one for creating our Notion setup. So I made a board here and we're gonna rename it Notion Workspace. You can click into it. And now you see we have a new canvas to work for this project. So going back to our list earlier, we're gonna wanna create a list of different workflows to be our dashboards. So we're gonna start with cards. And one workflow I definitely wanna make sure I include in my Notion system is planning my day, copy and paste. I'm just doing Command C, Command V. The second one is taking notes for school and keeping track of assignments. And then we'll do one more for an example, maybe track my routines and habits. There's a lot more you can put in here, but we're just gonna keep it simple for now. Now, once you have the general idea of the different workflows you wanna incorporate, we can go and create a list within each of these where we break down exactly what is required in this workflow. So if I want to plan my day, for example, I'll need to see my daily tasks, see active projects, see my habits for the day. And for taking notes for school, I'd probably want to be able to take notes, to review the notes, see upcoming assignments, and probably see what I need to do this week. For tracking my routines and habits, I probably want to see my daily habits, see my morning routine, evening routine, and then maybe like plan an ideal day or week. And this should give you a good overview of exactly what you're trying to accomplish. And I can just write a quick title up here saying that these are my dashboards. And maybe I just want to color code these so I can actually select all of them, and we're going to change the color to yellow. So next we want to create our databases, and we're going to do this by asking ourselves what specific information do we need in order to accomplish all of the workflows we just listed under our dashboard section. So I can go and create a new card again, and if I want to be able to see my daily tasks, then of course tasks are going to be a big thing to track. I can also change this layout if I don't want it to take up so much room. There we go. Let's change the color so it's easier to distinguish. So I'm going to copy and paste. And if I want to be able to see my active projects, then that is also another form of information I need to track. See my habits. We're going to need to be able to see habits then. Taking notes, reviewing notes. Those all will be in a database called Notes. I could make a database for assignments specifically, but I want to keep my databases pretty broad. So I think I'm actually going to just keep those in projects. I won't create a new one for that. What I need to do this week, that can also be in tasks and projects. And then tracking my routines and habits, seeing my daily habits, seeing my routines. Yeah, I don't think we need to create anything more for this. Actually, let's do like a routines checklist database. So now we have an idea of the top level workflows and dashboards we need, and we have the databases we're going to need to build in order to support that. Now the missing link here is our database views, and our database views are going to be the sub workflows within each of these dashboards. And we can take exactly the checklist that we put under here and start to write them out. Creating a new card. We need to see daily tasks. And you would just continue this process until you've written out all of those subviews that you talked about within the notes of your dashboard cards. And then let's create a title for this. Now, another one of the main features of Scrintal that makes it really powerful is linking. You see a lot of this in Notion, especially through relations. It's also a powerful feature of it, but the problem with Notion is everything is structured very linearly. It's very top bottom. You can't see everything all at once in a single view, and that's why, we're brainstorming here, because I think it's easier to see everything at once, especially if we're trying to brainstorm how a system structure is supposed to look like. And the way we create links is all you have to do is click on this little dot and you're going to connect it to a card. When I open this, it tells me the backlink is to planning my day because that's where the link is coming from. And if I open this card, we can see that the links I've created from this card to other ones are under this links section. So we're going to go ahead and link our dashboards to the views that we want to be under here and take notes, review notes. I also want to be able to see my daily habits from this one. So this is going to give us a really good idea of how we can repurpose different views or different databases in our Notion system instead of having to create something from scratch, which I'll go into a little bit later when we start building that. But that's why we're okay with connecting our dashboards to the same views. And we're going to connect the views to the databases. See daily tasks, that is a view of tasks. See active projects, that is a view of projects. And we have habits, notes. Reviewing notes is also for notes. And now we have a pretty good representation of what it's going to look like in the very top level of our Notion, what kind of views are going to make up each of those dashboards, and then where the information is coming from to populate those views. So which databases are we linking to create it? And what's really nice is when you're actually going through and building this, instead of having to build out your Notion all at once, if you want to go into a dashboard and let's say we're going to create a planning my day dashboard, you can actually see under links, it's going to tell you all of the different views you plan to put under there. And if we go to views, you can see under links, it's going to tell you the exact database that you planned on using for this view. And then in backlinks, it's going to tell you which dashboards you want this view to appear on. So again, super useful because you don't have to keep track of this all in your head. And if you want to go and build your Notion piece by piece, maybe work on it like 30 minutes a day, you can actually start and prioritize with the different views or dashboards that you find most helpful now. And this is a really great way to keep track of that. And if you do plan on doing this piece by piece, something that could be helpful in tracking the status of your project is to highlight all of these. Let's go to tag, and we're going to create a tag that says to do. Actually, I already have one set up. So now you can see all of these cards have a to do hashtag. If I open this, you're going to see that there as well. And anytime I go and complete something, so let's say I finished planning my day, I'm going to tag it with done. Let's say I created this view already, I'll tag it with done as well. And if you want to prioritize which ones you want to work on first, you can also just go and star this. And we'll star that one. So you can see it over here in the starred section. When you come in to work on this, you can just go straight to the sidebar and see exactly what it is that you're hoping to work on next. Now keep in mind, this is supposed to be messy. It doesn't have to be, perfectly organized. That's the whole point of having this giant canvas and being able to move things around and try different stuff. Keep the notes messy, just use it as a reference to come back to as you're building stuff and to check off exactly what you still haven't done. And that way you're keeping your Notion clean, even if it's not fully built out yet and you don't have a bunch of scattered notes for what you still want to do or improve on. Okay, now that we have this as a reference, we're actually going to go into Notion and I'll show you guys how to start building from this exact type of structure. Okay, we're going to start from a completely blank workspace here, and all we have to do is go into the sidebar and say new page. This is going to be our homepage, home base, life operating OS, whatever you want to call it. And we're going to start by creating pages for our dashboards. So the way you create a page in Notion, you can just press slash and then type in page. So this is going to create something new. You can see in the breadcrumb that this lives under homepage, and we're going to title this daily plan. So this is going to be all of our daily tasks, everything I need to see when I first start my day. And we can go back to homepage and then start another one, school notes. Let's do one more page. This will be routines and habits. So we have our 3 dashboards that we're going to start with here, and it's time to create our databases, which I'm also going to put on the same page. So I'm going to create a toggle here, which is going to hide information if I toggle it on or off. And this will be settings. So it's kind of like the settings for my app. Open this, and I'm going to create a database as a full page. And I'm going to be referencing those databases that we just talked about. So I had a tasks database, and then I'm going to create another one for projects, another one for notes, and then a final one for habits. And another trick you can do is just command bracket, I'll put it here somewhere, if you want to go back and forward in Notion. It's a lot quicker than having to click on the breadcrumbs or arrows. And now you can see these databases I can open and close here. We don't always need to see them because you're usually not going to be accessing your database directly. We're only going to be interacting with them through the views that we want to be able to see our information from. And something else I always suggest doing is creating your own navigation. There is the bar over here. You can have it stay static or hide it and just hover. But you can't really organize this in the way you want to, and we just have so much more flexibility if we create one on our own. So I usually have this hidden, and in settings, I'm gonna create a navigation bar, and all I have to do is just write, daily plan dashboard, and then school notes, and routines, and habits. And if I wanna create a link, I can highlight this, and you're gonna see this link option. So I'm gonna link it to daily plan, link school notes, and finally to those routines and habits. So now when I click on this, you can see it also brings me to my daily plan, school notes, or I can click on the actual page. And this is just navigation hyperlinking 101. But the key here is I can actually make this into a synced block, which means that every time I copy and paste this navigation bar into a new page, it's going to be connected to the original. So if I make changes in this navigation on one page, it's going to show up on the next, which is really nice because that way, as we add more pages and update our navigation, we don't have to go through every single page and update it with those new pages. It'll do it automatically for us. So all I have to do is click on this, copy link to block. If I go into my daily plan, just do Command V, paste in sync, and now we can see that that navigation is at the top of this dashboard. I'm going to do that for all of my dashboards. And now if I were to go into here and say, add something, and then I go back, you can see that that shows up in here, it shows up in all the dashboards that I just put it in. And I like to just keep any synced blocks in settings as well, because that way you can keep track of where the original is. Now we're gonna go into the databases and create different views. So this original one here just says table, there's not really a name for it. I want one of the views based on what I had written earlier to be daily tasks. And you can create your properties based on what you think you're gonna need in order for this view to work. So if I had, task here, how am I gonna be able to filter it by daily tasks? It's probably gonna be by the date. So I can add a new property by pressing this plus sign, go down to date, and now I have a new date property. And I can say, date for this task is here, task 2 will also be here, task 3, maybe that's due in a few days. So now you can see I have my daily tasks view set up, and all I have to do is filter it by the date to say this day. So now every time we see this view, it's only going to show me tasks that have the date for today. And just as another example, if we go into the notes database, we could probably set up one for new notes, or maybe the property is the date created. So we're going to do create a time. And then we're also going to create a new view that is review notes. So we have note 1, note 2, note 3 is anything that we created today, so we can see all of our notes from the day. If we want to review notes, maybe these are going to be ones from 1 week ago. So anything from a week ago, it'll pop up here and we'll know that we need to review that. And I really, really do not suggest filling out your databases with all of the information you have already. If you have 4 years of lecture notes, don't go in here and just create 4 years worth of entries. It's really hard to know exactly what properties you need or how you're gonna wanna use this until you start using it. So I would suggest just maybe populating 3, 5 entries at most to give you an example of how you're gonna wanna start using it, and then just add as you go. And when you get to the point where you really have trust that this is gonna work, that's when you can start populating older data. Now if we go back into our dashboards for daily plan, we're gonna keep this really simple. We don't wanna waste our time structuring things, decorating things before we even know what we're gonna use this for. So we're gonna hit that slash again, and I'm gonna create a toggle. You can do toggle lists, or you could do a toggle heading, So let's create a heading. It's a little bit easier to see. And this will be my daily tasks. And I can do Command D to duplicate this. And right now I'm just referencing, again, that view section on my scrintal board page where I wrote down all the different views I want to have. One of them, again, daily tasks. And then the other one was see active projects, see my habits, probably see new notes. That might be interesting to have when I'm reviewing my day. And we're going to open up these toggles and create a linked view of the databases that we just set up. Hitting that slash button, you can just type in linked view of database. And what this is doing is instead of creating a new database, we're actually pulling the information from the databases we've already set up. So I'm going to link it to tasks, and you can see you can copy an existing view, which is why it's actually really nice to create those views in the databases themselves, because then it's easy to just grab whatever you need, have it set up, and you don't have to redo all the filters every time. So we're going to click daily tasks. And now you can see under my daily task toggle, if I open this, you're going to see all of the tasks that we had set up with the date for today. And we can do the same with notes since we set that up. Linked view of database, notes, new notes. So now I'm starting to build the really bare bones functionality of what I want my workspace to look like and how I want those workflows to be structured without getting distracted by all the other details that it's very easy to get distracted by. And once you start creating these toggles with the different views, you can duplicate them if you want to see the views in different dashboards. See new notes, I can highlight it, Command C, go back to my home page. I open up school notes, which again, in my structure plan, I said I wanted to have new notes available in here, and I just Command V. And that way we can see this toggle is already set up with the new notes linked database, and I don't have to set this up again. It just makes things a little bit quicker. And that's really about it. I mean, I know it's simple, it doesn't look very pretty right now, but it's more than enough to get started, and it's really gonna help you understand whether or not the workflows and the information that you wanna keep in here are really gonna work for you before you start to get carried away. Now stop. Yes, you. I see you on Pinterest looking at Studio Ghibli banners and cute little GIFs. Unless you have limited time to waste, in which case, good for you, tell me your secrets. There's still one critical step we're missing here, which is iteration. In the world of product design, there's two really important concepts. One is prototyping and the other is iteration. So when a company gets together to create a new app or a product, they don't just squirrel away for an entire year and create something from concept to finish and launch it and they're done. That's not how it works. Instead, you actually start with a very bare bones MVP version of the app that's just barely enough to be functional. And that's because we can't really know up front exactly how a user is going to react, what problems they're going to run into. I mean, you can predict it to a degree, but there's always, without exception, going to be things that you didn't think of until you actually put it to the test, put it in the field, and see how people interact with it. That's why designers are constantly encouraged to challenge their assumptions. And that's a concept we can actually bring into designing our Notion workflow as well. Notion is really just a training wheels sandbox to build your own app. So what I highly suggest is blocking out time in your calendar to work on this. So that could be once a day, once a week, once a month, whenever you think you'll have time for it, and limit yourself to only tweaking your Notion within that time frame. If you have changes that you want to make or things that come up through the week where you think, oh, this process could be improved better, I should add this filter, write it down, put it on a sticky note, God forbid, put it in a note in Notion and reference that when you get to your next time block. And that way you're not going to be spending hours and hours and getting distracted fiddling around with Notion when you're actually supposed to be getting stuff done. Now it's time to discuss all those nifty tips and tricks that I promised you earlier. These are just some ways to make your life a little bit easier as you're going about and building and doing all the things that we've discussed so far in this video. Consider it your homework if we're still going with the classroom bit. First and foremost, make sure that you are keeping your hierarchy and your navigation as flat as possible. This means no nesting pages, no nesting databases, because that is how you lose track of information in your workspace. Instead, I would suggest creating like a settings page or toggle on your main homepage, whatever it is that you build, and just put all of your databases, all of your dashboards in there and have everything accessible from that section. Number two is to keep everything that is absolutely critical above the fold. Above the fold is just a design and engineering term for the part of a website or an app that you see immediately before you have to scroll. So you want to do your very best to keep everything in that section if you can, because if it's not, it's out of sight, out of mind. You're gonna have to scroll to see it, and you're probably never gonna reference it or even notice that that information is sitting there. And some strategies for keeping things higher up in the page: you can use toggles to make sure that all of your headings are visible, and you can kind of just toggle on and off from there. You could also just keep your dashboard simple. Make sure that the critical information is the only thing on there, and build out different dashboards based on your needs instead of trying to make a super long one that you're gonna have to scroll through every day. Or a third option, which I actually have to give credit to another YouTuber who came up with this. It's called the perspectives method. It's essentially just creating a database of different pages and then having each of those pages be like a single view of your database. And then the third thing that I want you to keep in mind is to use databases whenever possible. And honestly, in an ideal world, the only pages that you should even consider having outside of a database are your top level dashboards. So for example, if you needed to write a wiki for work, instead of just listing out a bunch of pages for the different types of information you need to document, you would create a database for all those different pages and notes, which is related to my fourth point, which is to keep as few databases as possible. So remember earlier when we were talking about database views? Well, you want to design your databases so that they hold as broad of information as possible, and then you use those views and those filters to narrow it down to whatever kind of information you need to look at. So going back to that work wiki example, if you also wanted to have a personal wiki, instead of having two different databases for that, you could just create a wiki database and all source information or reference information will go into there. Like let's say you're a video editor at work and you also create content at home, then maybe one of those resource pages in your wiki is going to be about Premiere Pro shortcuts. And now that you have everything in the same wiki, instead of having to duplicate that information and update it in two different places, you can just simply make tags to help you differentiate between what is for work and what is personal. Which brings me into my next point, which is to never duplicate information ever. You want to create roles for yourself to help encourage you to keep only one source of truth for everything. So remember earlier when we were talking about grocery lists? So instead of having a grocery list on your shopping list dashboard, a grocery list on your meal planning dashboard, there's probably going to be some overlap there. So you'd actually want to create an ingredients database. Put all of the ingredients that you would shop for and then have that linked in your shopping dashboard and your meal planning dashboard. And that way you don't have to go update it in two places. And that brings us to our last point, which is actually the most important one. Here, come in a little bit closer because this is actually a really good one and I don't want you sharing it with other people. The secret. Are you ready? Okay. Keep it simple, stupid. Say it with me. Less is better. Elegant design is about subtracting, not adding. Anyone can put a bunch of unicorns and glitter on a page and make something look aesthetic, whatever that means. But truly being able to create something streamlined and frictionless is the ultimate goal of design. And the easiest way to do this is honestly just to move away from always asking yourself, what can I add? And start asking yourself, what can I take away? I hope that you are at least a fraction, tiny, itty bit less frustrated than you were when you first clicked on this video. And if you want to learn more about the fundamentals of Notion, I actually have a course called Notion University. It's built directly in Notion, super interactive. It's not just me lecturing at you the whole time, don't worry. If that's something you're interested in, I will link it in the description below, and it's also currently on sale. So, go check it out sooner rather than later if you want to take advantage of that. Otherwise, don't forget to sign up for a free trial of Scrintal, and I will see you in the next one. What you end up listing again. It's been like 5 minutes. This ambulance won't stop. Number one. Maybe I should use a banana. Number one. No, it's probably too phallic.